Okay, let's take a look at some of the comments here. We're just going to jump straight to the comment section. My basic point was that the Second Amendment doesn't offer you a whole lot of protection if the government only has to lie about what you were doing in order to take it away from you by killing you and literally prying your gun from your cold dead hands. Let's see what some people have to say, and I'm going to respond to these. This is the whole video. I'm just going to go through these comments and respond. One said both sides are cults. I thumbs up that comment because I didn't think it was too far off. One person said he be alive to duh if he was not interfered in a law enforcement action. Misspellings his. I said, what law enforcement action? I don't see any law enforcement. I see adults arguing with each other until, and I used voice to text, so I guess I was making fun of him a little too soon, until one of those adults decides to shove a woman to the ground. If he had been detaining her, that would have been a different story. Detainment is law enforcement action. Shoving someone to the ground with no apparent or stated intention to detain them is not. The real question is, why are you justifying the wrongful killing of an American citizen? I'm going to stand pretty solidly by that, besides editing it to correct this one little mistake here. Until. But we don't hear what's being said, and I will concede that right now. This is not a time or place to be trying to make really bold assertions about things I cannot say for sure. We do not know what's being said. We do see very clearly that an ICE agent suddenly shoves a woman violently to the ground, and not just to the ground, but directly away from himself. I will wait for any law enforcement officer to explain the part of police training where you are taught that part of arresting someone who is simply standing there, not someone who's running away or you have to catch up to or run after, but someone who's standing directly in front of you, facing you, talking to you. Part of that arrest involves shoving that person as hard as you can away from yourself. That doesn't look like law enforcement to me. That looks like a man-child who lost his temper with a woman and shoved her to the ground. So I doubt that there was any real law enforcement going on that he was interfering with. What we do see very clearly is that he's trying to help that woman up. What we also see clearly, and I'll just say it right here at the beginning of the video, or as close as we can here, that we also see him ignore being pepper sprayed in the face while trying to help her up. He does not respond to that. We see him ignore being pushed several times in the process. He continues to focus on trying to help the woman up. None of that is law enforcement. If someone's doing something wrong, you can arrest them. He's right there. She especially is right there. She's a woman standing and talking to 5+ heavily armed men. It's really hard to believe that they had any intention to arrest her. And shoving someone to the ground is not law enforcement. So, no, he was not interfering with law enforcement. I'll move on. They didn't claim he pulled his gun. They just stated he had a gun. They justified his death because he had a gun. Law enforcement as a whole doesn't want armed citizens. So I wasn't sure where he was going with that at first, but his point's pretty clear now. What I said was the claim that he pulled a gun has not been universal, but it has definitely been thrown around. I'll mention the most noteworthy that I know of way it's been thrown around. Stephen Miller tweeted that Alex Pretti, he didn't use his name, he probably didn't know his name at the time, but he tweeted that he was an assassin who was attempting to murder ICE agents. You watch the videos, you can clearly see that that's not indicated anywhere by what happened, and he pulled that out of thin air. It would take a lot of investigation to reveal that. If somehow there was some manifesto somewhere, that does not appear likely whatsoever, and Stephen Miller certainly wouldn't have known about it when he just pulled that out of thin air and and claimed it. And then J.D. Vance retweeted that statement. No intention to understand what happened. No intention to check whether he was in the wrong or not in the wrong, or the ICE agents were in the wrong or not in the wrong. No intention shown whatever. Only an intention to assassinate his character, as the saying goes. I'll move on. It could have only been with the Trump administration because it's a cult. Stephen Miller said an assassin tried to murder federal agents. There's that point right there. This guy says, put himself in that situation. Do stupid stuff, win stupid prizes. I don't feel bad for people that make dumbass decisions. Would you walk into a firefight with a knife? He didn't, but you pay the price for bad decisions. I said the U.S. government would sure like you to think that opposing them in any way, and that didn't go in quite correctly with voice to text. The U.S. government would sure like you to think that opposing them in any way is a bad decision that could get you killed, and you just shouldn't do it. Are you okay with pushing that narrative? Because that's really the narrative that he's saying. Just let the government do whatever they want, because if you walk into that situation yourself, if you use your First Amendment right or your Second Amendment right anywhere near something that the government is doing that you disagree with, well, I don't feel bad for people that make dumbass decisions. So using the rights that we have as American citizens is a dumbass decision. Posting that comment was a dumbass decision, but thank you for it. It gave me something to respond to. And thank you everybody who's watching this and interacting with it and posting your dumbass comments. I will appreciate you helping me to grow my channel in that way. And if and when this gets monetized, I will use that financial freedom to make even more content like this. So thank you so much for helping me get there. Why was he there at all? Now I replied, and he also has replied. I have not seen that reply yet, so we're going to find out what it was. Do you not like the freedom that comes with being an American citizen? He was there because he wanted to be. That's how it works in this country. If you don't like it, maybe Iran is accepting new residents. I kind of let him have it here, but let's see what he said. I'm absolutely about freedom, and that's what he chose to do with his freedom. I'm just saying I would have chose to stay at home and keep my family and loved ones safe and out of that stupid shit with my freedom. So again, kind of the argument that, hey, well, if you put yourself near federal agents, they might shoot you, and we should just go ahead and expect that and stay home. And especially if you're exercising your rights, if you're not just walking on the sidewalk being a pushover, but if you're actually exercising your American rights near federal agents, you might get shot, you might get killed. Let's just accept that that's the reality and move on. This is America, dude. That is not meant to be the reality in this country. And we didn't get to where we are today because a bunch of people just accepted that the governments could do whatever they want, and we can just deal with it and stay home and worry about our own families. Right? A bunch of brave people said, actually, we want something better for this country, and we're going to put our lives on the line for it. And Alex Pretti really did that. His death obviously is being misrepresented, misconstrued, and spoken badly of. He's been spoken badly of. A bunch of people are saying that what he did was stupid by being there in the first place. But he very well may be the turning point, because people are seeing, when you watch that video and you see him trying to help a woman off the ground, you see that's the only thing he's doing in that particular situation that escalated the way it did. You see him ignore being pepper sprayed. You see him put his hand in the air, indicating that he has nothing in his hand, first of all, and that kind of classic, my hands are up. posture as he passes the ICE agents. You see him continue to focus on helping that woman. You see him get pepper sprayed. See him get shoved. Then you see him get tackled. And you see from a different angle, from the front angle, you see an agent beating him in the face, like viciously, with something. I'm not sure what. It might have been a gun. Not sure what. You can't make out what is in his hand. But you see all that happen. And then you see him get shot. And it's important to remember what came before the shooting. You know, a lot of people are saying, "Well, we gotta look at what happened before the shooting," because they want to see what he did wrong before the shooting. Well, yes, we should look at what happened before the shooting. We're gonna see ICE do a lot of things wrong before the shooting. The beating him in the face. Explain to me, in what part of police training beating someone in the face with an object is part of an arrest, while there are 4 or 5 people physically restraining that person, while he does not have a single chance at breaking that restraint. You're beating him in the face. This is all before the shooting. So yes, we do need to look at what happened before the shooting to understand who was in the wrong and just how clearly they were in the wrong. So you can go ahead and stay home and keep your family and loved ones safe by staying home while things get worse and worse, while the government gradually strips away your and their rights. However, we do not live in the country that we live in and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy because everybody had that mindset. So feel free, but it's not for everyone, and Alex Pretti is a more courageous person than you are. However, I can respect the fact that you want to stay home with your family and that's your priority, by all means. But we don't need to be asking the question, why was he there at all? He was there because he chose to be there because that's what he chose to do with his freedom as an American citizen. I don't know the nuances of it, but the way you ask that question suggests that you think he did something wrong by being there. And now you're trying to recover from that and say, well, yeah, he totally had that freedom, but you know what I would do with my freedom is this. No. Nope. We are not victim blaming here, and I'm not letting you get away with it or back out of it. You can apologize. You can say you were wrong to suggest that maybe he shouldn't have been there, and then we can move forward. Let's move on. Granite State preparedness. Ooh. Let's take a look at this profile. On this channel, 2 comments. He has 36 subscribers. Let's see how prepared he is. I don't think he's prepared for my response, but we'll find out. It doesn't mean anything for the 2A. When you peacefully protest, you don't bring a firearm and 2 extra mags. You bring a sign, a bullhorn, and other protesting apparatus. I guess he's super prepared with the protesting apparatus that he brings when he protests. Nope. Having a gun does not indicate an intention to wrongfully use it. Otherwise, that argument would work for the grocery store too. You have the right to bear arms. Stupid. Voice to text. I thought that was a common enough phrase. You have a right to bear arms. But why would you bring one to the grocery store? Anyone who wants to shop just brings a minivan and maybe some reusable grocery bags. If an officer sees you with a gun at the grocery store, he can reasonably assume you intended to kill everyone and shoot you first just to make sure. See how stupid that sounds? The grocery store and assaulting ICE agents and throwing your body between them and criminals is night and day between grabbing a can of soup. See the difference? Heated/assaultive versus shopping. The only assault we saw, did this guy even watch the video? Because it's worse if he did. Because if he did, he's saying that the guy who got assaulted was the guy who did the assaulting. If you have eyes and a brain, you can see that that's not true. So, throwing your body between them and criminals. Just because somebody gets shoved to the ground by somebody in a uniform or a pretend uniform, someone who's playing dress up as a federal agent, does not mean that person's a criminal, right? I guess this person just trusts the government and everything they say. If the government says she was a criminal, she was a criminal. And he threw his body between ICE and that criminal, who they were, for some reason, shoving to the ground instead of arresting. If she was a criminal, wouldn't they arrest her? Probably, because she wasn't a criminal, they had no recourse other than to just get violent with her, because they had no cause to arrest her. And if they did have cause to arrest her, they failed in that very simple objective. 5 heavily armed men were somehow unable to arrest one woman who is standing there talking to them. But yeah, she was a criminal, and he threw his body between them like something out of Lion King or Pocahontas. So I will respond to that later, but I won't make you watch me type all that out. And then we have, no dude, you are wrong. We believe let the investigation play out. If he drew his weapon, then he deserves to die. If he didn't, the CBP is in the wrong. And these are both my comments. 1, do you have eyes and do you trust them? Like I said, we saw a lot of wrong things happen before he got shot. We saw supposed law enforcement officers shove a woman to the ground. And I will add, shove her away from themselves, which is not the procedure for performing an arrest. We saw them pepper spray him for no reason. We saw them shove him for no reason. We saw them then tackle him. We saw them beat him in the face with an object while he was incapacitated on the ground. And finally, we saw them shoot him. And then, after hearing that initial shot, we see and hear the shots another 8 or 9 times. And actually, in one of the angles of the video, if you've watched it, you can see the agent who is backing away from his lifeless body, still emptying his gun into Alex. But yeah, let's wait and see what the investigation does. Let's see how much they can twist this and somehow find a way to make it his fault as the conclusion of this investigation. Let's trust our government to do that correctly and accurately. And then I also said, and maybe save that let's wait and let the investigation do its thing lecture for J.D. Vance, who, once again, I need to not use voice to text, or I need to check it, who retweeted, I thought that was a well-known phrase as well, retweeted almost immediately a statement by Stephen Miller that the man who was shot was an assassin there to kill federal agents. A lot of hypocrisy in all these statements. A lot of let's analyze every single thing that this guy who got killed might have done wrong. Everything he could have possibly done better to avoid getting shot. And none of let's analyze what the agents could have done better to avoid shooting him. To avoid shooting an American citizen who was exercising his American freedoms that hopefully we continue to have moving forward. No hyper-analysis of the government, no hyper-analysis of those individual agents, but hyper-analysis of his decision-making. Like, it really does boil down to, let's just accept that we should be afraid. And this is an admission too, right? This is them admitting that their take is the government will shoot you. And they don't even have to be right about it. And you'll get blamed. And we'll be okay with that. Because all these statements of he should have just stayed home or anything along those lines is really boiling down to, we should assume that bad things will happen when federal agents are involved. And the only way for you to be safe is to stay in your house. Now, I've lived in America my whole life. I've visited some other countries. I like America the best of any of them. And I have not stayed in my house for my safety anywhere, including in other countries like Honduras, when I was walking around the streets at night and I was the only person out in a completely silent nighttime cityscape. And I did that because I'm an American and I'm not scared to leave my house. And in that setting, maybe I should have been scared to leave my house, but I didn't get killed. But I'm definitely not gonna stay home in America as an American citizen because bad things might happen to me if I exercise my American rights. That is not an acceptable answer. Well, the government's getting really bad, but hey, just stay home and it won't affect you. I'm going to leave it at that.